My first question is, as an entrepreneur, what trade and non-trade barriers do you think prevent Pakistan from gaining competitiveness?
Thank you, Riba. I think it's a good question, but I might need 3 hours to, answer this. But I'll try to, just list some bullet points in 3 minutes. First of all, we can split it into two type of barriers. Some of our own making, the internal domestic issues, and some of the trade barriers or non-trade barriers which on the external side we face. So on the external side, the biggest problem which Pakistan faces that we feel isolated. We are in none of the trade blocks like ASEAN or CAFTA or NAFTA. Even African countries now have trade preferences into Europe and into US and Canada. Pakistan has the only FTA where we have some leeway now is with China, but it's going to take a lot of time for us to really develop that market because of the competitiveness of the Chinese own manufacturers within China. Having said that, there is still some possibility of some exports into China. The only other preference we have is because of the GSP plus status into Europe. That is not a permanent thing. That is a very, very, short-term window for us. And countries like Vietnam have already, going into FTAs with Europe, and India is negotiating a FTA. So I think we are going to face a lot of problems. The only trade bloc we are in is SAARC, and we are the only country which is not able to take any advantage out of that. And we have some presence in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and those countries can take preference advantage of that with India and other exporting and importing goods at a duty-free status. But Pakistan, because of the certain issues we have with India, we don't enjoy that. So this is one of the biggest problems. The other external factor which we face from Pakistan is that unfortunately our trade routes are very lengthy. The world is world wants a very fast track speed on response to the consumer preferences. A ship moving out of China takes 2 weeks to reach US. We need at least 30 to 35 days because we don't have any direct vessels going. Our trade volume is very low. Those are the issues. Then we don't have ease of travel into Pakistan. For the customers to travel into Pakistan, come here and find a conducive environment. No matter what we say, they don't find the environment they need in Pakistan. We don't have enough exportable surplus, and because of that, the big retailers and brands, they don't have their offices in just a few. And those are sub offices. So most of the offices hubs are either in Hong Kong or in Bangladesh, even in India. So it is very difficult for us to communicate with them, even travel, or when the buyers coming in. So these are the things. And now these are the issues which are related to the buyers or the retailers or which we have, or the customers. Now coming to the internal, and I'll then finish my, bullet points because I must be running out of time very soon. Unfortunately, we have not invested in our people. Though we have a huge surplus labor, we have never trained them. On average, for any work, the efficiency of our laborer is 3 to 2.5 times, 3 times less than that of a Chinese or equivalent person. I don't think there's anything wrong with our people. We have not invested in them. We have not trained them. We have not really tried to, make them learn more and do more. The other thing is, obviously, we don't, as I said, we don't have enough capacities. We don't have exportable surplus. If we need to, on a thumb rule basis, if we need to expand our exports by $20 billion, for example, we need an investment of $10 billion. So the government was looking into, and they had facilitated more investments by the domestic sector, by the local producers. But because of this COVID, this is all, now up in the air. So we would need to do that, and we'll need to have a long-term policy from the government, because if the export sector is struggling every 6 months to, get concessions and subsidies, that is not the solution. You have to have a long-term policy which is not based on subsidies, but based on efficiencies and performance, and on a fair level playing field within the country and with other similar countries. So these are the barriers which we need to remove really if we want to do something about our exports. I think I must be out of my time, and so I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Begin round two. So in round two, we're talking more towards the future. So again, my first question is directed at Musaddiq. How do you see the future prospects for exports from Pakistan? Are you satisfied with the government strategy and budgetary measures to enhance exports?
Okay, Ariba, I think we should be mindful of what's going on in the world. As you might know, and everybody here would be aware that according to the projections by all the international bodies, the global GDP is expected to shrink by around 6%, which is at least 4 times more than the 2009 crisis. Though some of the projections say that the world won't go back to pre-COVID situation till 2022. So that's 1.5 years away. Some analysis are saying that although the dip is to one of the worst in 70 years, the recovery is going to be fast as well. It's going to be brief. We still have to see. We don't know where the world is heading. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave or not, and how markets have just started to open up. Similarly, in Pakistan, we don't know. We still don't know where the peak is going to be. We are totally unaware how we are going to manage it, whether it will be managed okay, or whether we'll have to go for more lockdowns. When the entire world is opening up, the demand is generating, would we be going back to lockdowns? So that is another topic. But this we should keep in mind to understand the future prospects. The main aim for any organization, or for that matter country, is to keep the companies solvent during this, whether they are for the domestic trade or whether they are for the international trade. We have to bear the pressures of COVID-19 and the resultant economic downturn for a prolonged period. It's not going to be over in a month or so. Even when the things will open up, there is going to be much reduced discretionary spend in the Western markets. Overall spend by the consumer is going to go down. So the demand is going to shrink. Keeping this in mind, I think our exports will stay in pressure. The only silver lining I see is that we have always been complaining that Pakistan, unfortunately, has been unable to move up the value chain. So we do most of our exports, because about 60% of our exports are in textiles. And if you take textiles, we are at almost the bottom edge of the chain. We do very basic products. So that is the silver lining. The fashion is suffering more. There's more demand coming up for basics. So that is going to help us, which is staying in basics is not a good thing in my point of view, but in these situations, we will be relatively better off because the basics would sell more. And the budgetary measures due to the COVID. I think Adil and Shafiq and Chandana had elaborated on that. Let me point out one thing. What I've seen is that as far as the advisor on commerce and the advisor on finance are concerned, they have been very receptive during the last few months. They have been very accessible. They have been trying their best to solve the issues, to understand the issues. And I must say that the Governor State Bank has been the most receptive. And having said that, the only benefit or the good scheme which has been given by this government and is by the State Bank, the Rozgar scheme, where they have helped a lot of enterprises with very, very low markup refinance in order to retain their employees. That is conditional to retain their employees for 3 months. And that has been, modified and executed at a very fast pace. I've seen that if we have gone back to the governor with a certain anomaly in the scheme, it was rectified within hours, not days, within hours. So I've never seen SBP to work. So that I must commend that. Apart from that, to be honest, at least for the export sector, we have got nothing. No subsidy has been given. There has been a talk of using 100 billion rupees. Those were refunds. And so far, as far I know, there are hundreds of billions of refunds which are outstanding. We have been paid on as an export industry, about 30% of our refunds have been paid back. 70% is still outstanding, and that is not a subsidy. I'm not asking for a subsidy, but that is saying it that it was part of the package. I think it is slightly exaggerating the whole issue. It's not that is a refund which is due. That's our money lying with the government, and it has to be paid back. Part of it has been paid back, and I hope the other will also be, so that the liquidity can be improved. Now, coming to the present budget, I think that on tariffs, I would completely agree with Adil and Shafiq. I think what has happened is that as a policy, the tariff control has been given to the Commerce Ministry, where it shouldn't be. That's what the intention is, and I hope it is kept that way. The tariff shouldn't be used to raise money. Tariff should be used to promote the domestic industry and the trade. And in this budget, we have seen that the emphasis has been on more value-added manufacturing. So the tariffs on the raw materials and the things needed by the value-added industry, whether it's domestic or it's export-oriented, has been brought down, which is a welcome step. Under normal circumstances, there have been no new taxes. That's a welcome step. If you say that it's a COVID budget, no, it's not. The world has seen $9 trillion of stimulus, the real stimulus. I know, I completely understand what should have happened and what could have been done are two different things. The government has a very little fiscal space unless they create that fiscal space. Now they are not going for taxes, so the fiscal space is not there. So either they have to cut down on the expenses, which we know probably not going to happen. So there's no fiscal space, or they have to talk to the IMF and probably seek more concession on the deficit side. First of all, I strongly fear that the figures given in the budget, I don't think they are realistic. You cannot, with no new taxation, with some tariff concessions, how can you raise $1 trillion rupees more? You cannot. So there has either you'll have to cut down your spending. How much you can do? Maybe you can cut 200 billion rupees from the development budget, which is not good. But then you will have to raise more taxes. So there is no doubt about that. There is going to be a mini budget. The government will be forced to do it. Or if they do go for more deficit financing, the inflation is going to go out of hand, and then the government's payout on the interest on their loans is going to go up. So it's a very difficult situation. But if we say that it's a COVID budget, no, we need a stimulus. It's not there. From where it's going to come, I don't know. But I think the corporations in Pakistan are going to struggle, and it will be difficult for them to stay solvent. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right. There's some commodities or services you feel Pakistan has an edge over, and how do you suggest we use them? I'd request.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to comment on what Shandana mentioned about the private sector. I think I absolutely agree with her. I think I have always been of the view that it's not just the government, the private sector has to come up and do their own thing, put their house in order. No two questions about that. But having said that, let me correct one thing. She did mention that JCPenney, Walmart, and Walt Disney pulled out because of the administrative issues here. I think it was just Walt Disney which pulled out, which obviously was a disaster because of the issues. But Walmart and JCPenney are still here, and that doesn't mean that our house is in order. But no, they are still here. Walmart and JCPenney are still here. Now, coming back to your question, I think there is, first of all, let's understand there's not going to be a quick fix. We need a long-term sustained policy, and probably it cannot come from one political government. We need to have a consensus amongst all the political forces of this country to have a 5 to 10 years plan where we build our exports, because without building our exports, you will always be going back into a current account deficit issues, because our growth is dependent, as Shandana very rightly said, our growth is dependent on imports. And if we want to increase the imports, we have to increase our exports to counter that. Having said that, again, I would like to quickly mention what Adil said. I would like to slightly disagree with him that the textile has no sufficient room. Yes, it's not growing, but Pakistan's share has shrunk to just under 1% or 1% of the global trade. We have a lot of room. Yes, we have to move up the value chain. The importance of textile sector is because it has the ability to employ millions and millions of people. In the initial 5 to 10 years, you can't really do away with the sector which can provide employment to so many people. But now coming to what are the prospects? So let's look what is our real strength in this country, which can also become a big problem for us if we don't address that. That is our youth. We have over 60%, 65% youth. One of the biggest youth bulge we have in the world. And if we train them right, we can really use them, put to very good use. I think Shamim was very right to point out that we have not paid enough attention to our services, IT and any other services. Our services exports have been dismal. While even in our region, they are much better than us. We could really, the government has to, and the private sector has to come up with a long-term plan where we not only support the IT services, we can have health tourism. We can have many other services which can be, brought in using our youth, train them for the right jobs, train them for those things, and it would take 2 to 3 years to start picking up. I think without promoting our services, will never be able to catch up. So that is one area which has been neglected very badly, and because we have such a vast majority of youth unemployed, I was looking at the Twitter for the last 2 days, and people were happy, and I'm really happy for them, for all the candidates, and I can see Naveed already smiling, knowing what I'm going to say. The candidates who've done very well and have been selected in CSS. Some of them are, postgraduates. Some of them are doctors, which is good. I'm very happy for them. But why are we not able to provide opportunities to those people? They don't see prospects here. So that the only way left for them is to go to CSS. So I think there is a lot of room. That's what the other area where I think we can have a long-term prospect is the agri sector. If you look at our exports, in the first 11 months, we have been able to export $19.8 billion of goods, which is 6% less than the last year because of the various reasons. Out of that, $16 billion came from textiles and our food category. But in food category, our vegetables, our fruits, our meat and processed meat is dismal. We don't need too much of land. We just need a proper emphasis, proper policy. And I think Shandana was right in that sense that we do have problems because of the devolution to promises. But I think that is the role of the government to bring everybody on the table and to have a national policy on that. And we need to promote our agricultural exports. We have a Middle East market. We have Chinese market. They need a lot of things. I was just exploring for certain project, and Saudi, for example, Saudi Arabia has now banned any fodder growing in their fields for the dairy farms because they don't want to use their water. So all the Middle East, it's a big market for the food which we have not been able to tap. We have not been able to tap the meat processing. We have big meat processing units, but we have not used that. So I think we can, and on top of that, I think as it was pointed out, we have not, been able to bring in investment for high-tech industry, for cell phones, for further appliances, for consumer goods. We do have a base for engineering goods exports also. So I think we need a long-term policy where besides moving up the value chain for textiles, we have to develop our services, our agri sector, and some value-added products gradually and we have to have a 5 to 10 year strategy for that. It can't be done in 1 year or one budget or two, and then we have to sustain that policy to be able to increase our exports. Thank you.
There is a difference in input cost, especially labor and energy, between Bangladesh and Pakistan. So what do you think about that? But we generally believe that the cost of labor and energy is higher in Pakistan as compared to Bangladesh. And in this situation, how can Pakistan compete with Bangladesh in the international market?
Well, I think, thank you for that question. Yes, on energy, I think our costs are higher. I don't think there is a need to subsidize the exporting industry, but what needs to be done is that we are overloaded by the inefficiencies of other discos, where there is a lot of theft and there is lesser collection, their receivables, and that they are overloaded to levelize the tariff to everybody else. While the big industries, you see, they are single point consumers, and they have to pay for the inefficiencies of the system. We are 30 to 40% more expensive in certain cases from Bangladesh and other countries, and I think that needs to be addressed. As far as the labor is concerned, I think we need to. We have to train them. It has to be a partnership between the private sector and the government, where we train our people. The Punjab government had a program with the international agency, which was run very effectively during the last few years, where they subsidize, they pay half the the stipend, and half the stipend is borne by the industries, and youngsters are trained, skill developed, and then they are inducted into the industry. I think we had spoken to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Commerce that this needs to be expanded on the countrywide scale, on a large scale. That has to be done. One thing which rather two things which I'd like to point out and then stop, because I think there are other questions pending. One is that Bangladesh has overwhelming female employment in the garment industry, which is a huge difference. It creates a huge difference. I think Shamim also pointed out that our diversity factor in Pakistan is very low. Part of it is because of the culture we have adopted gradually, although Bangladesh should have the same culture. Part of it is because of the government regulation. In Pakistan, you are not allowed to have women working in the night shifts. Whereas under the Factories Act, you have to rotate the shift workers. You can't have just men in the night shift. So that needs to be addressed. Safety of the women has to be addressed. I think that can. The other thing which I said I will point out is that even from the point of view of the manufacturers and entrepreneurs, we tend to think that whatever we save from labor is our profits. I think we need to invest more on our people, to pay them the right wages, to pay them the right overtime, to take care of them so that they feel loved and they give you more. We think that if we can pay them less and less, or we can just pay them what is prescribed, probably we'll save more. I think that's the wrong approach. We have to give them more. We have to take care of them. We have to take care of their families. We have to respect them. We have to train them. And that's how you can get more out of them, if they feel that they're working for their own company rather than working for a state. So these are the things which I think make a difference. And that's how we differentiate from Bangladesh.